was, although you weren't reading from the paper, you were really looking at the audience. However, I felt as if you were the way you were talking and presenting, I felt as that that's the way you would talk in an argument with somebody else. The topic, although I don't agree with you, it is interesting and bold topic to bring up. For the sources, you only use Old Testament verses, and the point about Christianity is that Jesus, came to break the old law, which that's the Old Testament. So I think maybe you should use more sources, put more sources from the New Testament to support your claim. I think it was a very strong structure of the whole year.
Yeah, it's hard to come up with a conclusion for the evaluation. I thought it was hard to hear you at the beginning of the speech, and in fact you said God is dead, and and I know that there's a punchline there or some other comment. I have no idea what it was. I couldn't hear it. So you need to project your voice a lot more, especially at the beginning. I could hear you later on and make out what you're saying, but you're a little inconsistent in the way that you were presenting those things. I've got to agree with Stephanie about the organization. I could not tell what direction you were going. It just seemed to zip from topic to topic. I think you need an earlier definition of moral nihilism. I think you need to explain to us what an objective understanding of reality is and how it contrasts to the moral standards that we're using currently. You've got a couple of inconsistencies in religious standards from primarily Christian point of view, and based on those standards. By the way, I'm not exactly sure that the point of the examples that you use is the direction in which you're talking about. Murder and incest are both condemned, and in fact the two examples that you cite seem to be suggesting that that's consistent, not inconsistent with the position that you're taking. Now the homosexuality example where you're objecting to people, or not objecting, but you're pointing out that people were objecting to folks who had negative things to say about homosexuals on campus and how that might be inconsistent with their religious beliefs, and having to reconcile those kinds of things. I thought that was maybe a more practical example of that, and you could use more of those illustrations. Universal Code of Ethics, I've got to have an understanding of where it comes from. Is there some logical procedure that we can use to establish that, or is it just going to be determined ethnocentrically? You make the argument about ethnocentricity, but what universal code is there that everybody, the idea that there is an objective perception runs contrary to most human experience, and so I think you need to figure out how to explain that. I'm not a philosopher. I wouldn't begin to try and debate Nietzsche, but I can tell you that clarity is important in understanding an argument, and this was not as clear as it needed to be. And I just think that you kind of get sidetracked on some issues that don't develop well as arguments, and some other things that sound very interesting to discuss. It's like everybody, you're college students, everybody spark up a doobie and talk about it to the middle of the night, and that'll be a great conversation to have. But I'm not sure that it makes a fantastic speech. All right.